Good morning, everyone. I hope every single one of you enjoyed your 3-day weekend. All of us have different ideas of what a relaxing weekend is, but I hope you had a relaxing weekend and you're ready to go strong for several weeks before we have another day off. This is a typical week in world history, except I just won't be in the classroom with you. You'll have homework today, Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday will be your study night, and you'll have another test on Friday. If you haven't looked at your PowerSchool app lately, your grades from last Thursday's tests are all recorded and graded. If you don't like your test score, you know when I get back I'll give you an opportunity to retake it, counting the highest grade. Those of you that are struggling to complete assignments, you haven't buried yourself in a hole deep enough yet that you can't get out. Start doing your assignments. They amount to 40% of your grade. This week we're focusing on revolutions, big changes with democracy. To better understand these big changes in democracy, we have to understand the mindset of people in Europe in the mid-1700s. So today we need to look at 3 questions. The first question we have to look at is just simply, in the mid-1700s, how did people define the word constitution? Other people would use the term constituted order. Both mean the same thing. But I can tell you how you and I envision the word constitution and what the word constitution means is totally different than how people in Europe in the mid-1700s defined the word constitution. See, back in the mid-1700s, the word constitution meant the rights or the privileges or the protections that each group, social or economic, had gained over decades of living in Europe. You might have to look at that several times because those words don't look right to us. Because today, we think in our country that everyone is equal, that all of us have the same rights, the same protections, and the same privileges, no matter what social group we are a part of, or no matter what economic group we are a part of. Today, here in the United States, we feel we all have the same rights, the same protections, and the same privileges. But not in Europe, not in the mid-1700s. See, in the mid-1700s, each group had different rights, each group had different protections, each group had different privileges. Seems so foreign to us today. Now, some countries still today have this concept, practice this concept. But hopefully here in the United States, we don't. Because again, one of the underlying principles of our country is we are all members of an equal society in front of the law. Now, in the mid-1700s, another term we have to become familiar with is this term aristocracy. Aristocracy was the name given to the ruling class, the social group that ruled. And how did you become a member of this ruling class? Well, some people were born into it. Other people became part of the aristocracy because of the wealth that they had gained, or inherited. But remember what was happening to wealth in Europe in the 1700s. It was disseminating. It was spreading. Well, what we're going to see here in the mid 1700s is we're going to see people wanting to change. We're going to see a desire for change. Not from everyone, but there's going to be some individuals and some groups who are going to want to change the system, change or alter the constituted order. They're no longer going to accept what has been accepted and has evolved in Europe into the mid 1700s. That's what democratic revolution is. Democratic revolution is the idea when certain individuals and certain groups said, no, no more. We want a change. We want a big change. We want a revolution. And what were they trying to change? They were trying to change the norm, the constituted order. Now, what you and I might think as far as big change, and what was considered big change in the 1700s is going to be quite different. So our second question today is just simply, what did the democratic revolutions focus upon? By the way, the picture on this screen is a painting of France's king, Louis XVI, who took great pride and totally believed in the Constitution, the constituted order. The democratic revolution focused upon several things. But if you can just remember, it focused on privilege. It focused on freedom. It focused on liberties. Then that's the core knowledge you need to have. They were, the democratic revolutionaries focused on who exactly are citizens of a country. Is the country there for the citizens? Or are the citizens, is the country there for the citizens? Or are the citizens there for the country? And is everyone that lives in a country a citizen? And if not, do citizens and non-citizens have the same privileges, the same freedoms, the same liberties? The democratic revolutionaries also focused upon who's going to pay taxes. Taxation has been an issue around the world for centuries. No different today as it was centuries ago. But one of the questions that democratic revolutionaries had was, who in a country is going to pay taxes? Is everyone in the country going to pay a tax? Is everyone in the country going to pay the same rate, the same amount? Or are certain people going to have to pay more than others? Or are some people not going to have to pay taxes at all? The third and final question we'll look at today is just simply, what system of government had European nations developed in the 1600s and the 1700s? Most countries in the European nations, most nations in Europe in the 1700s and the 1600s had developed monarchies. Most of these nations also had a legislative branch, a branch that would make laws. However, in some nations, the legislative branches had a lot of power. In other countries, the legislative branch had little power. But almost every country in Europe by the 1700s had some form of monarchy with a legislative branch. And I take it for granted you all know what a monarchy is. That a monarchy is when the leader of a country, the position is inherited from one generation to the next within a family. Well, as a result of the commercial revolution and the military revolution, those countries that had experienced both revolutions were seeing an increase in money, an increase in wealth, an increase in power. The monarchs in those countries were attempting to gain more power. See, power is kind of like an apple pie or pumpkin pie. There's only so much power within a country. And how that power is distributed is up to the people in power. So the monarchs, as these countries were becoming more powerful because of the commercial and military revolutions, these monarchs were trying to gain as much of that power within that country as they could. Because of that, this time period is known by many historians as the age of absolutism. That word absolute, when there's no doubt about something. The monarchs wanted there to be no doubt who was in charge, who had the power in the country. They did. Now there's going to be some disagreement with that. There's going to be other people in the country that feel that that's wrong, that the power should be disseminated amongst several groups or all the different groups within a country. But most monarchs in the 1600s and the 1700s were trying to grab all the power they could, that there would be no doubt who was in charge. Age of absolutism. That's where we'll stop for the day as far as my lecture with you. If you need to go back, if I went too fast in the notes, you can get on my plan book and you can go back and you can refer to previous, you can rewind, fast forward this presentation. But I have a few more things for you to do today, and then I'll talk to you again tomorrow.